So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Corinne Shiflett, working at the system office with Tammy Rosner and Margaret Mullins. So today we have Steve Hopkins joining us from CISI, and also David Bottoms is on the call. He's our broker from TBX. Mostly this call is just for Steve to help walk us through the CFAR policy that has started or been launched, so to speak. So that's basically all I have. If you want to reference the email that was sent out over SCIE, the email was dated July 20th. If any of you want to pull that up. A big crash. I'm going to turn my video off when I'm done talking as well and mute myself so that we don't get any interference from the thunder and lightning that's now started. So thank you, Steve, for joining us. And I hope that this can be just another learning opportunity for all of us to explore this new policy and for you to answer any questions and for us to just know more about this. So thanks again for joining us. I think it's really appreciated to hear kind of live in person more about this versus just reading it on an email. So thanks. Take it away.
All right, so let me see if I can share my screen here, and if someone will please tell me that yes, they can see my screen and they can still hear me.
Yes, to both.
All right, so all good. Let me begin by saying that this is a new product for us. CISI, the top line there, we've been doing study abroad insurance in the system for a long time. We've worked with most of you. We have a variety of what we call pass-through products that we're just doing our best to make available for folks to buy if they need. And this is going to fall into that category. We are hopeful in the new year that we will be administering this product. We're hopeful that we'll be handling claims, but the reality of that is that that's not what this is right now. Crum & Forster is the name of the underwriter. The company that they own that is administering this product is called Travel Insured International. And when we get into detailed questions or if travelers have questions, they're going to call TII, and TII is going to help. So in that regard, CISI is a broker. We're there to help you guys. We can help with positioning how these things work. We can help with manipulating things a little bit. We're going to advocate for you along with David Bottoms. And you know, we're going to do our best to help you, but ultimately this is a pass-through product. And we did not design it for the educational market either. So again, somewhere down the line, we hope to have a carefully tailored CFAR, IFAR product that's designed for universities, but these are strange times, and we wanted to get this to market as quickly as possible. So the reason why we're having, well, at least a reason why we're having this kind of explanatory meeting is because some of the stuff here is a little complex, and the wording isn't overly friendly for our normal market, as some of you have seen as these pieces have gone out. So let me just kind of run through these slides. And then we can talk through questions and specific details as we go, you know, as long as you guys would like to. So first, there are 2 worldwide travel protector plans. One of them is just general, and you can see down at the very bottom that there's a whole lot of fine print as to different stuff that they cover. In regard to travel delay and travel cancellation and trip interruption. The cancel for any reason and the interrupt for any reason parts, what we call CFAR and IFAR, in which I'll be referring to as CFAR and IFAR from here on out to keep from all the syllables. These are only in the plus. So when a traveler picks this plan, they can pick basic coverage or they can pick the one that applies to COVID-19. And again, right now in this world situation, everyone is looking at stuff that can address COVID-19.
Sorry, Steve.
Yes.
Can you scroll down a bit? So in our view, I think the little sort of control panel is over number 3, both WH. Yeah. So if you just scroll a little bit and just keep what you're talking about towards the top of your screen, I think that will help us.
Let me, since it's going page by page here, let me see how best to do that. So give me just a second here. Maybe I can make this a continuous view. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks. It's like all the little icons, I think, was over what you were talking about. So it was just hard for us to
the
see
goal
everything.
is to make this all as complex as possible. Let me see if I do that. Does that help?
Maybe you could get a bit bigger.
How close does that get us?
I think that got us closer.
All right. Well, let's try pushing through, and again, I can try to get to a point where I can read some of these things to you. So I can actually read what's in the boxes if that helps.
Yeah, and like I said, people can reference the email that was sent on July 20th to SEIE. That might be helpful to have again as Steve's talking.
And again, I can send the slides out afterwards as well.
Perfect.
So on the far right, it says other benefits include there is limited medical coverage, there's accidental death and dismemberment, there's rental car damage, there's baggage loss and delay, there's flight change fees, there's itinerary change, there's misconnections. In regard to travel delay and trip cancellation, you can get 100% of these things back. Sorry, one more time. Corinne, were you talking to me?
No, not me.
All right, sorry about that.
I know it's like real stormy here. So
I've had a few of these meetings before where I find myself having talked for 10 minutes to myself. So sorry for the squeamishness there. So anyway, back to the CFAR IFAR concept. You are going to ultimately list. Let's see. So if one goes to our website and they click on the top link for Worldwide Travel Protector, and then they click on Get a Quote, what Get a Quote takes you to asks for pretty simple questions. It asks where you're going. It asks what your residence is. It asks when you're traveling. It asks what your initial payment was, when your initial payment was. It asks what your email is, and it asks for traveler names. And then the key point is the travel cost, the trip cost. What we can do with this form as we counsel people, we have a couple stumbling blocks to this. And working through those stumbling blocks, and I think Lori was one that had asked some questions about this last week. You have to buy this within 21 days, and the 21-day issue for us has now been defined as after the date of acceptance. So if you are accepted and some payment that the student has previously made is then applied to the trip, then that would count the 21 days running, and you have to buy this within the first 21 days. Or alternatively, whenever the student makes an affirmative step of commitment, they buy a plane ticket or they provide that deposit, after they've been accepted. So either of those things would also start that 21-day clock running. Student has to decide whether or not they're going to buy within 21 days. Let me back up just a little bit to talk about this cancellation and interruption concept. So at the very top, you can see the standard benefits that are there and the triggers. So it's got bankruptcy and military and assault and hijack and quarantine and injury and a whole list of things, terror, theft, etc. those things apply whether or not you buy the CFAR or not. The concept of the CFAR and IFAR is that FAR part, that for any reason part, and the fear of contracting COVID-19 is specifically listed here. So if it's a situation like what we had earlier this year, and your city does not have a bunch of cases and you haven't been exposed and you're just afraid, and you can see that ominous wave of COVID-19 coming your way, this is the only thing that we have available that you can buy to get you the heck out of Dodge before you've gotten sick and are showing symptoms. So that is the concept that is here. Now, in regard to cost, and back to the form and filling out that last section that says trip cost, the cost of this is going to be 9% of whatever your unreimbursable trip costs are. And there's no reason to list more trip costs than what is unreimbursable, because you're only going to be able to max out at recovering from that unreimbursable amount. So if everything is going to be reimbursed from the trip except for $5,000, you could buy this at $5,000. If you wanted to only insure $1,000, you could only insure $1,000. If you wanted to insure $25,000, you could insure $25,000, and basically your cost is 9% of that value. So this could be a very expensive item that you're paying $4,000 for. Or it could be a very reasonable sum of $90 that's covering that $1,000 rate. So it depends upon what your unreimbursable amounts are. If you put an amount that is higher than what your actual unreimbursed amounts are, you're only going to get reimbursed, or you're only going to be able to file a claim based upon what you're actually out of pocket. So it's important to counsel someone that is buying this not to go overboard and purchase a massive amount, because you're not going to be able to take a windfall off of it. You actually have to show receipts proving that that is out of pocket cost. Because we are in this university market, each of you out there are going to have the main role in this, because you're going to be able to write a letter for your students that are filing these claims. And say you canceled a program and they were already abroad, you would be able to say this program was canceled, due to ABC reason, and the unreimbursable amounts out of that are $2,500, and then we would look and see how much the student had actually put in as unreimbursable amounts, and as long as it's $2,500 or more, they would be able to file their claim there. What they are actually able to recover is not the full $2,500. It's 75% of whatever they put into that amount. So if they prove $2,500 is loss, they're going to get 75% back of that $2,500 value. Hopefully that explains things. And again, let's see here. So working through some of the potential stumbling blocks, which are probably currently covered up by the same things that were covering up your screen before. I'm going to talk through this. This is all pretty straightforward. If you provide a link to your student and you say, go and buy it if you want to buy it. You can kind of turn off right now as to this other complexity level that I'm going to share with you. The problem is that I have a number of clients out there who are very interested in kind of mandating this on the whole group, and they want everybody to buy it. Or some programs, they want to make sure that this is in place, because students having this type of coverage also protects the program from potential issues as well. So going through this concept of mandatory, because of the regulations on this plan.
Steve.
Yes.
There's a question in the chat from Lori Paulez at Georgia Tech. Do you want to field that now as we go, or do you want to wait till the end?
If you don't mind, read it to me, and we will go from there.
Through the thunder. Could you please clarify enrollment period? The policy info that we previously received stated 21 days after first payment, which for most is at the time of application. you said today at the point of acceptance or when payment is required and accepted. I'm still unclear. Could you clarify, and could we get something in writing so we have clear info to give students?
Yeah, so I will provide that to you in writing, and basically I'm starting from what's listed here on the screen where it says 21-day issue. So what we're going to need at the time of claim is for the student to show one, what they're actually out of pocket by way of receipts, and two, that they purchased the plan within 21 days of the first deposit date. And what we're going to be doing is defining first deposit date in this academic marketplace, a little different than the corporate marketplace where the original policy was designed. We're going to be defining first deposit date as the date of acceptance, if any money that the student has provided is applied as of that date. So if they had already deposited money early, and you wait 30 days before you actually accept them, and then the money that they've provided to you is applied to the program, then that first deposit date is the date of acceptance. If on the flip side, you're accepting the student and then it goes back to them and they're making a decision as to whether or not they're going to accept, like you're providing them with an offer, and then they need to make some sort of affirmative step towards the trip, then it's that first affirmative step. And that first affirmative step can be paying you, or that first affirmative step can be other things that would fall into non-refundable trip costs, because honestly, the program fees aren't the only thing that's out there that they might be claiming back from us. So it's first dollar out that is a commitment dollar. And the example that the underwriter gave was buying a plane ticket. So that plane ticket is something that they might be seeking refund back from us later. Therefore, that buying of the plane ticket would also trigger that 21 days. Does that help things, Lori?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right.
That's more clear. So just to clarify, you said that we could do either way. We could say that it's from the date of the acceptance letter, because that's when the student will officially be part of the program and owe us money, or we could trigger it by a first payment deadline, perhaps.
So it's actually the earliest of those two things. Date of acceptance doesn't necessarily start the 21 days. It depends upon whether or not you're applying money that the student's already given you on that day.
Okay.
So for instance, if the student gave you a deposit ahead of time, and at the moment that you accept it, that money is applied to the program, then your date of acceptance would be the start of that. Okay. If your date of acceptance is an offer of acceptance and the student then has to make an affirmative step afterwards, then it would begin with the affirmative step afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you so much. That's very helpful, and that's very different than initially stated, so that's helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a pain, and again, we have this same problem with lots of different types of insurance things that we do. They're very often designed for a corporate market, and they're designed for individual travelers, and they're not necessarily designed for, potentially minors or young people or folks that, we've taken on that in loco parentis role, and we're trying to counsel. So it's kind of a whole different concept when we start trying to take that square peg and hammer it into our higher education round hole. But we'll get there. The problem is that we just kind of have to work through each of these things, especially for those groups that might have someone that needs it here over the next 3 or 4 months. I think by the time we get to January, we'll probably have a whole different set of marketing materials and maybe some adopted policy language that's specific to students and faculty, staff, travelers, and stuff that makes more sense to our market. But for right now, we're kind of doing our best with the language that they've provided us, and then helping by providing clarifying language as we go. So the quotations around first deposit date are going to be important, for these things, and we'll provide that to you in writing so that you have it. All right, so again, moving on to this mandatory concept, and for those of you who are just going to provide a link, to your students and let them buy it or not buy it, this stuff is much less important to you. But so that you're aware of some of the additional stumbling blocks that we have here, this policy is not allowed to be opt-out in a group setting or a mandatory setting. It has to be opt-in, which means you can't say, hey, you guys are allowed to sign this form and not buy it. But if you don't do anything, you're automatically going to be in the policy. This one can't work that way. The default position, if they don't do anything, is that it's not purchased. So there has to be some affirmative step, some box to check, or something that occurs. The next point is that it's not allowed to be free. So I guess there has been a lot of folks in the past who have said, we're putting this in the program fee and you're already paying for it. So we don't care if you opt in or opt out, you're paying for it either way. You may as well opt in, and you can't strong arm the kids into doing that either. We've run into that issue with a few clients that wanted to make this kind of the equivalent of a mandatory group, and they wanted to pay for it on behalf of all of the students. We're not really allowed to do that either. There has to be some mechanism where if a student chooses not to do it, the money is refunded back to them. I went back to the underwriter and I said, what about a situation where the university is uncomfortable with the student going abroad unless CFAR IFAR has been purchased? And they said, well, there's nothing wrong with you saying that CFAR IFAR is mandatory. You just can't say that this CFAR IFAR is mandatory, which basically means that you guys could say there must be a CFAR IFAR product purchased in order to go on this trip. That's a rule. And you either have to sign up for this CFAR IFAR product, which we have very simply made available to you right here, or you can go out and buy your own and provide us with a receipt from that group, in order to move forward. And, so there are ways to do it like that if you needed to, but we have some very specific rules and some very specific semantics. So if you get to a point where you're planning on making it required for everyone, I recommend we have kind of our own one-on-one meeting and talk through specifically what you can and can't say in regard to this. And the last point on all of that, again, in this highly regulated field, is you're not allowed to mark up the price. If you do make it available to folks, it can't be made available plus 10% profit. That's less of a big deal for your university market than it is for some of our providers. But making sure that's out there for everybody as well. Did I hear another question?
I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you.
So there was a question early on about the claims process. And I was basically told that there's going to be here. I've got this other form. Let me flip to this next page. I was basically told that they're going to look for proof of payment. They're going to look for documentation from the program. They're going to ask for photocopies of things. They're going to ask for credit card receipts. So they're actually going to take all of this pretty seriously. They're not just going to take your word for it. And they're not going to take a form letter from the university if you have, 12 kids who have all come back due to IFAR because you canceled the program and you're helping all of them through the process. One form letter isn't going to do it. Everybody's going to have actual receipts in order to move forward. Again, I think Lori in her list of questions had asked about the claims process. Outside of that, on this first page and on the CISI website, there is a phone number for TII. And the very first thing that they said to me before answering any of my questions was just have whoever it is give us a call and we'll talk them through it. So they're very hands-on. They have phone and email that one can use, and any specific questions can go there. I am also available. My issue with this is that unlike some of these products that I've been handling for about 20 years, this product is about 3 weeks old for us. So while we're pushing very hard to get it out there, it is a TII product, and I would like very much for detailed questions to have TII's input, on some of these things. So I will connect folks. I will be happy to be involved. I will be happy to ask questions for you. But ultimately, when we get down to it, we would like travelers to call directly to TII for complex questions. And if you guys during your setup process, have some specific complex questions, we'll probably connect you to the right TII people as well. All right, this is my pause section for questions.
There are no new questions in the chat. So if people have questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or send something in the chat. Otherwise, Steve, I think you can keep going.
Well, I've actually moved through my 5 slides. So I think we're at a point where I have exhausted what I was planning on discussing.
Well, maybe we can just hang tight for just a few more minutes so that people have a chance to either type something in or unmute themselves.
I have a quick question, Steve. This is Lori again. So around when do you think you would have updated language in writing that we can use?
So,
I ask because we already have people planning to go in the fall. And that, I guess that's another question. If we have a program for the fall that is pretty far along, I'm thinking our campus, Georgia Tech Lorraine, for example, they will be starting classes in August. They probably have already made some payments at this point, I would think. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but then it's probably too late for them. Is that the case?
if they're 21 days past, or if they're already on campus, and obviously they made deposit 6 months ago, then yeah, it would be too late for them.
Okay.
Now I will mention this. There is a group product that I have the ability to write that does not have the 21-day limitation, but it does not have IFAR either. So again, it doesn't help Lorraine because CFAR is prior to your departure. Okay. The CFAR concept might work for a Lorraine program in January, but it would not work for somebody that was on campus now because that one would have already passed.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it's probably too late for the fall. And then my second question was, when do you think we'll have some updated literature that we can post?
So I believe that I can provide you with administrative language on this 21-day situation or on any of these other hurdles that we're dealing with. I have a copy of a brochure and I have marketing materials, and I can probably get all of those things to you, by tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Let's see, I think there's another chat. So the question is, so there is only one 21-day start date, or does it vary depending on different purchase dates of travel expenses?
So each traveler would have their own 21-day period. So for example, let's say all of your folks are starting in a January program and you gave them all their acceptances on 8/1, and they all have 30 days within which to make their first payment to you or their first deposit to you. Whenever that first deposit is sent in, that's the commitment from the student, and their individual 21 days starts to run from there. So each of them might be different. On the flip side, if you collected money from all of them last month, and on the day that you accepted them, you applied all of the money that they gave to you all at the same time to the program, then the acceptance would start running on 8/1, i.e. the day that the first payment was, I don't know, appropriated, applied. Does that make sense?
I think so, but feel free, folks, to keep chiming in on the chat. There's another question, not clear still on the 21-day purchase date. We take a $200 deposit and 2 larger payments about 30 plus days after that. At the 21-day mark, we won't have airfare booked or payments due to providers and won't know the exact cost either. So I guess again, on this date, it would be on the $200 deposit date where the.
So I talked through this with a provider, and again, talking to a provider isn't quite the same thing as talking to university folks, and I recognize that. For the upcoming programs that they were looking at, and I think they had something running in late fall and something running in spring. They were actually going to change how they collected money so that this would work better for them. For what you described to me, the key component that I don't see out of that initial deposit, lump sum deposit 1, lump sum deposit 2. There's 3 payment amounts there. The point that I don't see is when was the student accepted. So if they're accepted along with that first deposit, then money would start running. Then the 21 days would start running then, because the money was applied.
So you just wrote the student is accepted when they make their $200 deposit.
Okay, so if they're accepted and they've paid $200 towards the program, then the 21 days starts running there. And again, I realize that this is not perfect for everyone. I started by saying, square peg, round hole. But if you needed to make it so that it would apply, there might be a way to make that first $200 something refundable, or there might be a way to hold the official acceptance for some period of time until things were more certain. If making this all worked was the primary important thing, as opposed to having the $200 or the small percentage of the trip, there might be some way to rework that. And again, we could talk through those things, but unfortunately there's a whole series of regulatory nightmare stuff. And as I've been going back and forth trying to get them to drop the 21 days, or to drop the 21 days so that we could have a much bigger universe with possibilities here in fall, what I keep being told is that each time that something goes outside of the regulations, that they have to go through a multi-step of getting it approved, or that they risk having a $10,000 fine, and they're not willing to do anything. Either thing. So right now we have a square peg, and the goal is to figure out how to use it when we can use it. And if folks fall outside of that, then they fall outside of that.
Okay, thank you. And there's
better in January.
There's another question in reference to the program brochures. So will you send that on to me, and then I can send it out over our listserv?
Yeah, we'll do. I think I have a marketing piece, and I think I have a comparison piece, and I think I have a brochure, and I'll send all of them to Corinne and David.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat and I'll read it out. And as Steve was saying, he's available to talk through maybe individual questions, but as he was also saying, this is something that's a new product for them and lots of rules from the underwriter and other company.
This is Maria from Augusta University. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I had to tune in late, so I may have missed something, but can I possibly use a real example? So let's say I have a program that's $3,000. The student opts in and wants to do this, wants to get this additional plan on top. So basically, with the university, you have to come up with like a non-refundable amount. I guess that's partially a question too. Or does the student say, hey, I paid $3,000 So that's the part I'm struggling with a little bit. Is that, I don't even know if I asked the question, Steve, I'm sorry.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. So you're not talking about when does it 21 days start to run and when do they have to buy it. You're talking about what amount should they put in as a proper insurable amount, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right. So again, there's flexibility here on purpose. We had an option of having like a gold, bronze, and silver plan or whatever, where we would do like $500, $5,000, $10,000, but instead we left it so that the student can actually put in what the unreimbursable amount is. I think what will end up happening is that most institutions are going to say, we recommend that you insure the unreimbursable amount of X. And for different programs, you'll know unreimbursable, like out of your $3,000 program costs, I don't know what percentage of that you would give back if you canceled the program in the middle. And if the answer is none, then that's a $3,000 program cost plus potentially plus whatever else the student's buying. I don't know if you have tours and apartments and other things that may be out of pocket loss for the student, flights, et cetera. You may also find, and again, I'm getting this back from lots of folks, where they say it's a $7,000 program, but the only thing that's not not reimbursable to the student is the housing costs, because housing costs are that way. So it's really only $2,500 that we need to be putting into that category, or something along those lines. So it involves a little bit of thought, and it would probably help the students greatly for you to say the estimated unreimbursable amount for this length trip is X. But the student could choose to make that $1,000 more if they've got a flight, or they've got a trip, or they've got, they may not even be coming back when your rest of your folks are coming back. They may be going on to Barcelona or on to someplace else for fun. So once you say what your unreimbursable amount is, it's possible that their amount might be slightly higher, or that they might choose to do a lower amount in order to make that, higher value for them as well. Because if you're insuring, $1,000, you're maybe only paying 90. But if you're insuring, $10,000, that's now $900. So it's a big difference in cost as well.
Thank you. There's another question. So then if we would like to require CFAR, IFAR, it would make sense to let our students know that the 21-day clock is ticking when they get their acceptance letter.
Correct. And again, it's probably worth having a conversation off this call. Again, there's some quirks that go along with making sure that it is opt-in and not opt-out. And, there's probably some ways to word it in such a way where everybody is going to buy the product. But you're not allowed to word it in such a way where it says everybody has to buy the product, so there's, it's worth talking through the language and making sure that we're all on the same page there as well.
Great, thank you. No new questions. So maybe we'll just give another few minutes, minute or two, to see if any come in, because might be people need a moment or to type it out. Or feel free to unmute yourself. And like I said in the beginning, I am recording this call. I think there'll be a few hoops to jump through to get it actually posted on our website, but we'll work on that.
You're recording the call. You're probably happy that I just figured out how to turn off my shared screen. So.
All right, I have one more question. It's Maria from Augusta. All right, so let's say we offer this option to our students, and then and they want to do it. What is the easiest way we get them to sign up? Do we send them to the link and then have them do it all? Or I guess, being quite blunt, is what's easiest on us as well.
All right, so So by far the easiest option is just to say, go to culturalinsurance.com or go to mycisi.com. They both go to the same place, and click on the link at the top of the page. And in fact, you can take that that referring page and put that on your own site if you want to, and have them, skip that one page and go directly to where they want to go. They click on get a quote. They enter these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They enter these 10 boxes, and once the quote is provided, they click buy this one, and move forward from there. So it's all pretty quick. If they're paying for it, if they're entering the amount, if they're in charge of all of those things, and what you would probably want to do is to write down some kind of FAQ, responses as to, we recommend you insure this amount, but your trip may, vary. And we recommend that you buy this product, but if you have access to another product or have already purchased the product, you can show proof of that, or you can go on your own and buy those things. But if you word it in that way, then basically you're connecting them to the information, and we're taking it from there. Now, I'll throw this out there as well. We are in the process of working through some other types of enrollment options. And, again, if one of you says, if Lori says, hey, everybody going to Lorraine has to have this in fall, call and we'll talk through what we can do, and whether or not student action is the right way, or whether or not some other type of form is the right way. We can talk through how to do what looks like more of a group enrollment, though again, we're not allowed to call them group enrollments. They're voluntary packages of individual policies right now. But we'll be able to talk through how to help you with that, so that it doesn't end up being a situation where one of you has to go in and one after another enroll 25 kids one at a time. The goal is to make it easy on you. But for right now, by far the easiest option is directing people to the link and saying, we recommend you buy this. Here's the parameters that we provide, and here's the link. You should go do that.
I guess my immediate fear when I was thinking about that, would there be a chance where there's a mistake, the students are buying the regular CISI plus this plan on top of it? Because usually when we buy our insurance for students, it's closer to the date of the program, which would mean it could be months between the time when they have to purchase that versus when we purchase the regular CISI.
All right, so they're two totally different things.
Is it different on the webpage too?
It is. So again, you're actually not here purchasing a core insurance product. There is actually a medical component to it, which we would prefer wasn't there as well, but we don't have the ability to remove it yet. But it is not full-blown medical coverage. So I don't think that you would recommend to students to buy this instead of some other product. I think you would say this is a totally separate thing. The medical insurance is the CISI product. This TII product or this Crum and Forster product is CFAR IFAR.
No, I'm sorry, I might have worded that funny. I'm worried that they would buy the regular medical plus the other one, but then we purchase it. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm not making a lot of sense.
Right. Well, I think if you're setting up a form where you're sending everybody to the link to buy it, then I don't think that you have to worry about the possibility that they're going to go there twice, and buy it. Now, if you get to a point where you're doing group enrollments, then it might be worth a conversation to make sure that students don't go and buy, a separate product on their own. We run into that on our medical insurance from time to time. But if we get to a point where we're doing a group product with you, then we'll also have control over the administration of that. And we can cancel one of those. and move forward from there. So the individual products are a little tougher for us to just go in and cancel. But if somebody accidentally bought two individual products that were covering the same period, we'd be able to cancel that too. They can't double the coverage by buying it twice.
There's another question saying that the unreimbursable amount can vary depending on when a program is canceled or when a student withdraws. So would each student submit their own estimate of that amount?
All right, so there's two different things that go into that. The amount that you're choosing to insure up front is probably, I mean, it may not be exactly the same, but it's probably comparable, for most of the students that are going abroad. If you're going abroad for on the same program to the same place, you're probably looking at likely similar costs in that regard, but even that could vary. On the back end, the claim is going to look different for everybody because one student that freaks out and decides to come home on day 2 might have a totally different loss than a student that stayed for 4 months and then came back at the end. So there could be variance on both ends of that. Up front, the person who fills out the form has control over what amount you put down for trip costs. And that trip cost should only be unreimbursable amounts because you're only going to be able to recover unreimbursable amounts. So if it's a $25,000 trip, but $10,000 of that can be refunded to you at any point, there's no reason to go above $15,000 for that coverage because you're not going to be able to claim more than that. Does that make sense? But both things could vary, and they could vary from student to student. The student has control over the first number, or whoever fills out the form has control over the first number of what that insurable amount is. The claim should take care of itself. The claim is just going to be submitting the total of all of the losses that you've suffered.
Okay, thank you. There's also another really great question from Funway, but probably not one that Steve is really prepared to answer. How do we ensure that in the long run we do not revert to education abroad programming, which is less affordable to students with financial difficulties and easily affordable for others? So I think it's a great question, and I think we should definitely talk about that. I was thinking perhaps we could talk about it at the subcommittee meeting at the next SEIE meeting towards the end of September, if not sooner via email or things like that. But I do think it's a good question, but like I said, probably not one Steve has the magic answer to.
Well, I'm not one to take silence sitting on my hands here. Let me just mention this because again, this is something that we've discussed too. One reason to allow a university to pay for everything and to include that in program fees is so that the university can then, allocate financial aid and all of those things and protect some of those that are less fortunate. In this situation, I don't think anything prevents you from allocating aid back to students to help, or from having grants or something else along those lines. But absolutely, a student with lots of money has the ability to buy these ancillary products, and they have a disproportionate ability to protect more things. So all of that stuff goes hand in hand. Insurance costs money. It's not really a solution, but we had discussed the concept of trying to force the underwriter to allow the university to pay for everything, and right now we have not won that battle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I think that maybe we'll wrap this up. Thank you again, Steve, for being here and for talking us through all this. I think it's one of those things you think you read the email and you think you understand it, and then you hear all the questions and you think, oh, actually, maybe I didn't totally understand it. So I think everyone is very appreciative. If you are finished, feel free to just log off. I'm going to keep this on until the very end so I don't mess up anything about the recording. So yeah, thank you again, Steve, for your time, and thank you everyone else for joining, and we'll talk to you on the flip side.
And anyone can feel free to reach out to me directly or through Corinne or through David.
Sounds good. All right, bye everyone.
Yeah.